Okay, so in the last video we were using OBS to stream into Facebook, and had some good features to it. I think the video stream was it felt more stable. We were able to tweak the appearance, and we were able to add some quite tasty reverb to the sound. What we weren't able to do really was get any decent monitoring in our headphones, or we could have had speakers here even, but we couldn't really get any decent monitoring because of the delay, and I just think OBS is not used to that particular problem. So the kind of software that is used to handle that problem is recording software, and so I'm going to propose that we try Reaper, which is quite inexpensive. In fact, at the moment it's free for 60 days. Recording software, quite lightweight. You can really go to town on the plugins and reverbs and things you can put in Reaper. And the question is, could you get the sound from Reaper to OBS? And Reaper has a really neat little plugin called Restream, which can take the sound from Reaper and send it basically to OBS. So OBS is relieved of its duties when it comes to sound, and can just do the job of assembling the video stream and sending it up to Facebook. So we have to download a couple of things for that. One thing we'll have to download is Reaper. Okay, so download the 64-bit version. Most people have got 64-bit. It's, as I say, it's free for 60 days. Optional functionality, yeah, that's all right. Make sure all the optional functionality is installed. There's a plugin in that optional functionality called Reroute, which we will probably use in a later tutorial actually. The other one we're going to need to install is a plugin for sending the audio from Reaper to OBS, which is Replugs. So we download the 64 version of Replugs, and this contains that critical Restream. Where is it? Restream plugin. There it is. Yeah. Very clever little thing that is. Okay, so got our replugs. We've got the Melder plugins installed, which is great. I wouldn't mind showing you some electric guitar actually, and there is, I think, called a free guitar amp called Boogex. I think is the one I quite like using. Yeah, it's free, so I download the VSTs for Boogex. Melder don't seem, well, they don't do a free electric guitar plugin. So we got Boogex in. So let's load up Reaper. Reaper will probably do a little bit of a scan of all its plugins when it first loads. It doesn't do this every time, but when you've installed a whole bunch of plugins, it will go through every one just to check that they're all valid and okay, and they're not going to crash the system. The reason I've ended up using Reaper a lot is I think it's really stable. Okay, so this is Reaper. It's a bit like Audacity. You have your tracks on this left-hand side, and you just assemble the tracks. And sort of record buttons and things. We won't be doing any recording. We're just going to use Reaper as a mixer actually. Okay, but first of all I want to see that Reaper's found the device that's for the sound, and we're going to preferences, device. Yeah, it's found my UMC driver. That's my Behringer driver. The UMC is the Behringer driver. If I had a Focusrite box here, it would say Focusrite USB ASIO. If I had a USB mic, it would have whatever the type of USB mic is here. Worthwhile having a look at the ASIO configuration. Normally this doesn't really matter when you're recording, but there's something called buffers in the Azure configuration, which we want quite low. As you can see, it can go up to 2000, but actually it needs to be quite low when you're live streaming, otherwise you can get a bit of delay. Reaper is quite sensitive to this, because if you look at the top here, it says I'm using 128 was the buffer setting, and that's a total of 9. Is it 9 or 10? 10, 5.3 in, 4.4 out. So a total of 10 milliseconds delay, which is as much as I'm prepared to live with. Actually, I've often had that down at 64. I'll try it at 128 on this occasion. Okay, so we need to get some sound going on here. So let's insert a. So I right mouse click in this area, then I go insert new track, and I'm going to have my first mic. I'm going to call mainly vocal. And I'm going to have that on channel 1, super. I'm going to have another mic that I'm going to call mainly guitar. So I'm actually going to use the fact that I've got two mics to separately mic the guitar, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that in a minute. And I'm going to want that on channel 2. I've got 4 channels in my Behringer here, so I can really go to town. I can I've got my drums going into the 3rd channel, so let's put them in as drums. Are they there? One thing I need to do before I go any further is make sure that you can hear the sound that I can hear. What I just did there, by the way, is show the master track. What happens in Reaper is you have all these tracks and they go into one single master track, which is the track that gets sent over to OBS, and you can put effects on each track and on the master track itself. I need to put one effect on the master track that you would never need to do, but I need to do it so that you will hear what's in my headphones. So I need to put the recorder that Melda let us have for free. Okay, so you wouldn't need to do that. So just ignore what I just did then. Okay, so I've got my drums. Did I put that on channel 3? Yeah, I did. So you can hear those coming in loud and clear. And we can add in, I've got an electric guitar here as well. One thing, by the way, these you need to arm each track. At the moment, the drums is not receiving any sound. I heard it in my headphones, but I heard it for a different reason. You have to arm that track, and if I do it now, if I arm the vocal track, you can hear that sound going to Reaper. So there's no effects on this, but the sound now is going into Reaper, and you can hear it. Okay, I'll have to make sure I mix that in correctly so you can hear exactly what happened there. Okay, so we're going to put the electric guitar in, so we'll put that goes into channel 4. So basically, my little 4 input Behringer here has got 2 mics on the first 2 channels, and then it's got the drums instrument input, and it's got an instrument input from the guitar. And I can arm the electric guitar, and if I bring that up, we have sound from it, even though we have no effects. But we'll start with the electric guitar just for a bit of fun. Let's put that Boogex amp on it. Okay, so this is what the Boogex amps looks like, and I'm thinking I don't understand any of that, but there are some presets probably, so let's see what we got. Smooth Drive sounds a bit like it. Okay, so let's yeah, for anyone who likes distorted guitar, if it was me, I'd be probably going for something much more gentle, actually. Okay, so that's electric guitar. Won't be doing anything more with that. So we can unarm that track. The drums, we won't need those. So I just want to show you my setup. So I'll get back to the camera. I've got a condenser mic here. That's my vocal mic. And the one I call mainly guitar is this one here. And what I do with this is I hang it on the desk, and I hang it so that it's kind of waist height. Put that there, so it's about waist height, and picks up. So it picks up mainly guitar. Yeah. So go back into Reaper and try and get some decent sound out of the vocal, I think, actually. So what could we add for the vocal? Keep it simple. There's lots of things we could add. I think there's an equalizer we can add. This is treble and bass and all that sort of stuff. I'm just going to use some sort of simple default. Essentially, you can... Doesn't look great, that, actually. You can fiddle with this to... Oops. I don't know what I'm doing. Presets. Oh, we're still back into presets, right? Okay. Okay, you can investigate the EQ. I don't think I've got another EQ here. Well, I've got millions of EQs actually. Actually, I tell you what we have got. We've got the Reaper EQ. Reaper. I'm going to uncheck the Melder one, because the Reaper one is quite understandable, really. So we can take off the low end and put a bit more high end up, so it all sounds a bit kind of sexy. Would that be the right word? Okay. Does it have any presets? It does have presets. Could investigate them, but the standard EQ in Reaper is not bad. Okay, but what we're really looking for is for the reverb. Oh, but before I do that, I want to show you auto pitch, because you might want to play with auto pitch. Okay, this is auto pitch, so it can start to sound a bit robotic, but just to show you what it does, if I turn it up to the absolute max and I sing a note, the brown thing will be what the note is, how it's wavering, and the green is how it's corrected. So if I sing a note, la, la, think of it. I wonder what note that was. La, that was an F. You never use autotune really like that. I think maybe 50%, maybe less, just to kind of make it a bit better. La, just reduces the wavering a bit. But it can sound a bit robotic, and I go hot and cold on auto tune, and right now I'm a little bit off it. I think I prefer to be natural, even if it's a bit wonky. The reverb, I quite like the M charm verb, and I quite like that white trail setting. Right, that's 10%. When we actually perform, I'm going to shove it up to about 35%. just almost to overdo it, to show you the effect. In practice, I think 25% will be all you'd want. Okay, I'm going to take that off for now because that's going to be too annoying. Guitar, again, I think a bit of reverb on the guitar would be good. White trail again, 10% probably more than enough. Oh yeah, that EQ. I think I'll go with the Reaper's own EQ actually, which is called Re-EQ. And is there a preset for guitar? Band for vocals. Close mic acoustic. Yeah, let's try that. Okay, that sounds. Yeah, I'll quite like the look of that. Put that ahead of the charm verb, so the re-EQ comes first, then the reverb. Okay, I think we are. I'll turn the reverbs off. We're ready to try and get our sound going through into OBS. So we go onto the master track. I'm going to send the whole lot through, remember, not just one track. So FX for the master track. There's my recorder, which you wouldn't need. It's just sitting in the background recording this sound. And we would add Restream. Restream. There's two versions of Restream, one for the Plugs edition, one for the Reaper edition, but they're both the same. Okay, and what we do here, we give it a name. John's Reaper. We go send audio, and we go down here and we go for local broadcast. So that's sending audio out to whoever on this computer wants to listen to it. And we are going to make sure that OBS is listening to it. OBS currently is listening to my microphone, and I don't want it to do that. So I go into filters, and I take out the ones that I put in before. We don't need those anymore. And I will put in one filter. It's called a filter, but actually it's just this Restream plugin that's coming from Restream standalone. Open the interface, and we're into receive audio. We give it the identifier. Right, you notice something. It's already capturing audio in here, and it's doing that because of a little problem I found that I have a workaround for. Receive audio. Right, so you do that and you think you're receiving audio from Reaper, and my experience is you're not. It's still receiving something. It's still receiving my mic. What we have to do is we have to install another program called the VB audio cable. Now the VB audio cable is free, and it's actually for redirecting sound within a Windows computer, but we're just going to use it as a dummy device. So what we do, we go to this site here and we download the VB audio cable and we install it, and I've already got it installed. And so what we do is we then, and this is quite important, instead of having the Behringer for the input, we don't want that. We have we haven't installed it yet. We need to install the VB audio cable, so let's do it. So I've actually downloaded it. Here it is, but we need to install it. So setup. Okay, and it says, of course, it says you need to run it in administrator mode. So you right mouse click on it, run as administrator. Install driver. Okay, it says you might need to reboot it. You don't need to reboot it. We might need to restart OBS. So we go into OBS and let's have a look if we can change and get rid of our mic input. There we have it. Look, we've got something else called the hi-fi cable, but we have this thing called the VB virtual audio cable. That's the thing I've just installed. And we put that there. Now there are no inputs going into that audio cable, so-called audio cable piece of software. So it serves a really useful purpose as a dummy input. And although you can't tell the difference, this sound is actually the sound coming from Reaper. That's a really important thing, that when you go into the properties of your input capture, it needs to be set to a dummy input like the VB audio cable. And then you make sure that in the filters it's the restream where the sound is coming in. Okay, so we're ready to finally ready to go. So we're going to and turn our reverbs on. Okay, so there's a bit of reverb there on the guitar. Turn the reverb on here. I'm going to have a look at that EQ. I reckon there's a better way I can do that EQ. Am I a wide male vocal? Let's go for wide male vocal. Yeah, that could be me. Okay, so I've got EQ and reverb. Going to Facebook, because we're going to stream into Facebook. Go to my homepage. Go live. OBS knows how to go live. All we've done with OBS is get rid of its microphone input and replace it with the restream input. Yeah, I know it can't get the camera because OBS has already got it. We use the stream key. Going to my timeline. Start the stream in OBS. Actually, it's still streaming from before, so you have to stop it and restart it. Connecting live video. And let's have a go. There she sits on Buttermilk Hill. Oh, who could blame her for crying her fill? Every tear would turn a mill. Johnny has gone for a soldier. Soldier. Right. Let's see how that came through. I should say, by the way, that it was great doing that, because on that occasion I could hear in my headphones actually what I was playing. So I could hear the reverb, but it sounded good. It sounded... Oh, who could blame her for crying her fill? Every tear would turn a mill. Johnny has gone for a soldier. Soldier. Right. Okay, so what was noticeable about that is we solved the sync issue in the last video, where we put a 200 millisecond gap, and so the video and the sound were going together. That was nice. We put quite a lot of reverb on there, but it didn't sound like a lot, did it? But it was coming through. And the sound was pretty good. And remember, we had the flexibility to put other sounds into it if we wanted to, including auto pitch if we'd have wanted to. In fact, I think we'll do one more example where we actually throw the kitchen sink of effects at the vocal so you can actually hear. So we'll turn the reverb up to 40%, my God, and we'll turn the auto pitch up to 50%. Okay. Just to make sure those effects are on, and you can see the auto pitch working. You can see the stuff going through into the reverb. It's going into the sound here, it's going there, and it's going and it's turning up in OBS. And if we check in the properties, there's no way OBS can get sound from anywhere else because that's a dummy input. So it only is getting its sound through that filter, which is the restream coming from Reaper. Okay, so it still doesn't seem extreme enough to me. Let's go a bit more mad. 56% reverb. Right, that's fairly massive. Right, so let's now put that into Facebook and see how it goes. Live video. Stop the stream in OBS. Camera issue. Yeah, we know about that. OBS has grabbed it. Use the stream key. Go into OBS. Start streaming. And in my headphones, it sounds really nauseatingly echoey. We'll see how it sounds on Facebook. Might shift you out. There she sits on Buttermilk Hill. Oh, who could blame her for crying her fill? Every tear would turn a mill. Johnny has gone for a soldier. Again, I could hear that in my headphones, what was going through, and I got a good feeling from that actually. The reverb is pretty big, but let's see. There she sits on Buttermilk Hill. Oh, who could blame her for crying her fill? Every tear would turn a mill. Johnny has gone for a soldier. Great, I was quite happy with that. Let me get this reverb off. One of the great things about Reaper is you can set up these shortcuts. So I think I've got a shortcut which turns effects off. Yeah. Okay, so that's turned effects off, and you can see what a real voice sounds like now. That's it really. I think that's as good as you can get going into Facebook. Remember that we were just doing guitar and voice, but we had the facility to add electric guitar in, and we could have put the drums in as well. I had a little diagram of that actually, which I meant to show you, but I didn't. That was the diagram. So, I don't know if you can see that. You can see that the cam goes into OBS to Facebook, the mic goes into Reaper, whizzes off into these, what they call plugins, VSTs, gets its reverb chucked on, auto pitch. The auto pitch wasn't too bad, was it, when it came through? And then restreamed over to OBS and up into Facebook. Okay, that's it. The next one I do will be a rather for a different situation where you need a device input and Restream is not capable of doing the job. So for Zoom or Twitch, no, Twitch is okay, but for Zoom in particular, you can't use a stream key, you can't do any of the stuff we've been doing. It needs a device and it's looking for a mic, so we have to fool it. And there is a way of doing that using a thing called a hi-fi cable, which we can use this similar technique, but that's for the next video. I'll stop streaming and conclude this one. I hope you get on with that. I think it's pretty good.